the showers or the rain doesn't fall at your location, that doesn't mean that there was no rainfall in Grenada for that day if it did not fall at your location. And a lot of people would call and want to know, okay, I have something to do around my house today. I want to know if rain would fall. You can't narrow down the forecast to just a point like over your house, you know. We do a broad forecast for Grenada, Caribbean. And in terms of the models we look at, Grenada is just a dot on the model. So we cannot then make a forecast for a pin in that dot on the model, you know. So we try our best to give an accurate forecast for the tri-island state, but if you at your particular location don't experience what given forecast, it doesn't mean that that was not actually an accurate forecast for the tri-island state.
Hey, and welcome back to Pathways, the podcast where we talk with West Indians who are out here at home or in the diaspora, making work for them. These are the folks who are out there charting their own path, figuring things out in a non-traditional field or just in an uncommon way. If you're looking for some inspiration on where to take things in your own career, or you just like hearing about what others are doing and how they've gotten to where they are, then stick around. You can be a fly on the wall of my conversation with them. And maybe you'll take something away to use in your own life. When you're done, leave a comment and let us know what you liked or what you want to hear more of. And now, let's get into the episode. If you're listening to this episode at the time that it gets aired, that would mean that it hasn't been too long after Hurricane Beryl swept through the islands of Carriacou and Petit Martinique, of course also causing severe damage in the Grenadines, mainland St. Vincent, Grenada, and many other islands and countries in her wake. And if you're listening right now from Grenada, you should be pretty familiar with today's guest because she was a key part of the team from NADMAN, the local Met office, who helped get us through that hurricane with frequent updates throughout. And I think we were all really grateful for that. So Kassia Johnson is a graduate of the St. Joseph's Convent St. George's and the T.A. Marichaud Community College. She is an Aeronautical Meteorological Forecaster at the Maurice Bishop International Airport in Grenada. Kassia started working at the Airports Authority in 2013 as a meteorological observer and was later promoted to a forecaster in 2019. Her studies for this career took place at the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology in Husbands, Barbados. She also holds a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from Indiana University East. Lots to talk about today, so let's get right into the episode. Hi, Kassia, and welcome to Pathways.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. So I'm excited for this conversation. I think it's a little bit maybe well-placed timing-wise based on your career path and your journey. But we're going to start from the beginning and give people just like an overview of who you are and how you got to where you are today. So tell us, who is Kassia Johnson? Where did you grow up? And like, what was your childhood like, I guess?
Okay, I grew up in Grenada, the parish of St. David. My childhood was pretty normal, I think. I was a regular child, went to school, activities, and so on. I went to the St. Louis RC Girls School, then St. Joseph's Convent, St. George, and then to T.A. Marichaud Community College.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you remember what you wanted to be, or did you have something that you wanted to be when you grew up, back when you were, say, secondary school?
Well, when I was in secondary school, I actually wanted to be a pilot.
Okay.
And telling that to my parents, my aunts, and my older cousins, they were like, a pilot? You'll be out a lot, you're flying, you're not afraid to be flying, and these things. So what else you want to do, and these things. So that got me thinking, and based on like the subjects I liked and so on, I was pretty good at math and I liked geography, and so I was looking into careers that's along that path, and meteorology was always my second option.
Okay.
But it just so happened I got a work at the Met Office before I even ventured out into the piloting atmosphere. So I fell in line with my second option pretty early in life.
Okay. So, well, that is my next question. What was your first job?
Well, my first job was actually at a store called Country Code Store in
Okay.
Penwether.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and after there, I was employed at the Met Office.
And your current job or profession, like what is the title?
Okay, well, my title is Aeronautical Meteorological Forecaster because my job mainly deals with forecasting for the aerodrome, for the airport, for the planes, and so when they are coming to land, they need to know the weather conditions for the next, say, like 24 hours and so. So that's what my career is. But being the Met Office for Grenada, we also forecast for the tri-island states. So I am a forecaster.
Okay, interesting. So a few questions, but first, I noticed that you have schooling in meteorology, I guess, but then you also have a degree in math, which I didn't know. Which one came first and like why?
Actually, I was at the Met Office before I did my degree in mathematics. So when you get employed at the Met Office, you can't just work there at any Met Office. You must do some specialized training. So the training facility for our region is actually in Barbados. So when I got employed, 2 weeks later, I had to go to train in Barbados for about 4.5 months, where I became a meteorological observer first. And I was an observer for a couple of years, and then there was an opening for a forecaster. So my boss actually nominated me, and then I went back to Barbados for 18 months to do my certificate in forecasting. And I've been a forecaster since 2019.
Nice.
And along that line, I actually did my bachelor's in math on my own during that time. Yes.
Okay.
So I think it was 2017 I started. And well, as I had to go to Barbados, I left for Barbados in my second semester. So I tried to do some courses still online, but some semesters I had to put it on pause to focus on my schooling in Barbados. So I graduated in 2020 or 2021, I think, 2021 with my bachelor's in mathematics.
Nice. And what led you to, like, was math something that would help you in your meteorology career, or is it just something you said you were always good at math? Is it just something you wanted to do? Why math?
I was always good at math from primary school, and when thinking about, okay, what can I do a degree in? Because I was already working at the Met Office, so I didn't think it was necessary for me to actually do a degree in meteorology, because even if you have a degree in meteorology, you still have to do that specialized training to work at the Met Office. And it wouldn't be for 18 months, but you would still have to do some specialized training. So as I was already employed at the Met Office, I didn't think it was necessary for me to do a degree in meteorology. So I was thinking, okay, what do you like? What are you good at? I'm good at math. So I did my bachelor's in mathematics. And meteorology is, in fact, a lot of math and physics. A lot of people think it's geography, and so I mean, there are some aspects of geography that you need to know, but it's mainly mathematics and physics for meteorology.
Okay, so a couple questions, because I don't think I fully understand what a meteorologist does, and I'm sure a lot of people listening don't either. So specifically, Aeronautical Meteorological Forecaster, is there a difference between that and just what regular people would call a meteorologist, or is it like the same thing?
Okay, well, I think meteorologist is like a broader umbrella, and under that, you have people that do the forecast, you have people that do research, and all different aspects on the meteorology, like climatology wise and so. But specifically for an aeronautical meteorological forecaster, we look at the weather that is going to be affecting the aerodrome. And when I say the aerodrome, I mean the airport, the area around the airport, because
Okay.
it's mainly producing the information for the pilots to know what the weather is going to be like, if they should fly into the aerodrome and so on, or if they should go to an alternate location and so on, or if they delay the flight or cancel the flight altogether.
So you work closely with air traffic controllers or directly with
Yes.
pilots? Okay.
Yes, air traffic controllers, and sometimes the pilots would come in for a briefing if they see that weather conditions are looking a bit iffy. They will come in for a briefing for the forecaster to tell them, what the weather is like, and give them a flight folder, what we call a flight folder, which will have the weather at our current location, at their destination, at alternate aerodromes, and so on, if they need to make a detour, and so on.
Okay, interesting. So when did you decide first that you wanted to be a meteorologist? I think you kind of spoke to that a little bit before, but you had pilots in the back of your mind. And then I guess there was some talk that was kind of dissuading you a bit. And then you would have done TAMCC, right?
Yes.
So at what point between secondary school, choosing subjects, TAMCC, and then actually getting into your first job where you're like, yes, this is what I want to do for the foreseeable future?
Okay, I think maybe since I was in Form 3, maybe I had that in my mind. And it just so happens that the subjects that I would have needed to focus on to be a pilot was like the same as what I would need to be a meteorologist. So it was just in line. I think, maybe around Form 3, and when I was choosing subjects, I knew I needed to do physics. Well, obviously you do math, and I knew I needed to do geography. So I did those, and I actually went into TAMCC doing the same subjects, physics, mathematics, and geography. And then, as I said, I got employed. I always knew, like, after TAMCC, I want to work for a while before I go and do a degree and those kinds of things. So, you have your plans as a student in school because you're fed up with school and you want a break, you want to work and make some money and so on. So it just so happened my friend was actually employed at the airport, and she told me the Met Office had out their invitation for applications. So I applied and I got the job, and I was like, okay, well, I guess this is where I'm supposed to be. So I just threw pilot at the back of my mind, and that was it. Okay. Yeah, and I enjoyed working at the Met Office. So there was no need for me to say, okay, well, this is going to be a 2-year thing. I'm going to leave and go on to being a pilot and so on. That's just so far from mine right now, really? Even. So and I've been in office for 11 years now. So it's really out the door for me now. Okay. So you're committed. Yes, All right. So what does a day in your job or a week in your job usually look like? Like, what are you doing when you're sitting in the office or wherever you work from? Okay, so the Met Office is actually open 24/7. So there's always at least 2 persons on shift. So we work shifts. Okay. So the morning shift is from 5:30 a.m. to 2 p.m., evening shift 2 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., and the night shift is 10:30 p.m. to 6 a.m. the next morning. So we normally work morning one day, evening the following day, then the night shift the day after, and then we'd get 2 days off. Okay. So I work 3 days on, 2 days off, 3 days on, 2 days off. So weekends, holidays, actually today's Saturday and I'm working tonight, 10:30 tonight, 6 a.m. Sunday morning. Yeah. So when I go to work, I observe the weather, the conditions that we currently have, and then I would look at the models to see what we're expecting at each layer of the atmosphere for the next 24 hours to do my forecast. On the evening shift, we actually have to make a 3-day forecast. So it will be a bit more work to look at the models and to determine what the weather conditions would be like for the following 3 days. So I do that. If there's any approaching system or any alerts I need to do, I would type up those reports like a heat wave bulletin, which I actually did yesterday because we've been having some hot days. So we're actually experiencing a heat wave right now, which is 2 or more consecutive days with temperatures above 31.7 degrees Celsius. So we're actually in a heat wave right now. If
Explains
there's
it.
any, yes, in the hurricane season, we have to do what is called a tropical weather outlook. We do that at 2 a.m., 8 a.m., 2 p.m., 8 p.m. To send out to our stakeholders about what the conditions are like in our area of interest. So if there's a tropical wave within our area of interest, if there's any system like a depression or a storm or anything that's in our area of interest, we would then send out a report alerting stakeholders, which includes media houses, NADMA, and all of these people, so they'll know what we're looking at, what we're focusing on for the upcoming days, so that people wouldn't be caught off guard about what weather we're actually getting.
Mm.
Right? So I look at the models, I come up with a forecast, and I email that out to our stakeholders and continuously monitor the weather and so on.
Okay, so I wanted to get into that because we've been hearing you on the radio for a while now, with your morning updates, but I feel like you really made a mark in the days and the hours leading up to and through Hurricane Beryl recently, which was very good. I think it was very helpful, especially for those of us who went through Ivan, and we know we didn't have like any warning almost, or I guess we just weren't paying attention, to have those like very frequent updates and telling everyone how things were going and what to expect. So is that part of the job that you were prepared for, like having to be on those live calls, or was it something that came up last minute? Did you volunteer? Like what did that process look like?
Well, we are actually trained to be able to handle those kinds of situations. So at school, at the Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology in Barbados, we actually have sessions where we have to do briefings, where we speak in front of our colleagues and our teachers, and so to just get a bit of confidence in saying what we're expecting and so on. So we're actually kind of trained to do that. It's not long training, but it's actually preparing us for when we have to do these TV and radio interviews and so on, because they
happen. Yeah.
No, yes, and they want to know, according to people, straight from the horse's mouth, so it's sometimes, they would just read it out, or so if it's nothing too significant. But when it is something that is of concern, we have to be prepared to actually give live updates to the public for them to know exactly what is happening. So I was prepared. My boss called me and asked me if I can do it, and I was up for the challenge.
Nice. Well, you did a great job, if I do say so myself. All right, cool. So was there anyone, or has there been anyone like throughout your career that you felt like you were able to look up to, maybe in terms of like a mentor for guidance to kind of understand what you're getting into and help you to grow along the way?
Well, when I started at the mayor's office, there were obviously a lot of older heads, and they kind of paved the way. I would ask them, okay, show me a little bit of what they're doing, because I actually started as a meteorological observer, and there were forecasters there. So they would show me little things, how they're looking at the models and how they're coming up with the forecast and so on. So I give thanks to them, and my previous boss, he had since retired, of seeing in me that I can do this in the future and nominating me for the training, even when it wasn't really necessary at the time to get somebody, but he saw like he was looking at the future, and trying to keep me, excited about the job. When you're in a job, you want to see your future in the job, growth and promotion and so on. So that's why you nominated for the training to become a forecaster, because I actually did very well in the observing course. And even the lecturers were saying that, okay, they think I'll be good at forecasting. So don't take too long to send me back to do the forecasting training and so on. So
Nice.
it was all thanks to the older heads in the office that saw that in me when I just started.
That's good to hear. So what is the difference between an observer and a forecaster?
Okay, so when you get at the Met Office, the base job or the lowest level is a meteorological observer. So as a meteorological observer, you would continuously monitor the weather. You would make what we call meta reports every hour. You would go outside and monitor the different elements and write up the reports. And that is what they would send to the control tower for the control tower to relay that to the pilots. So you go outside every hour to check the cloud cover, the visibility, the present weather in terms of if there's any rainfall, if there's any haze, showers or anything. We also check the pressure, the air temperature, relative humidity, vapor pressure, all these things the observer would check every hour. And then they would write up the special reports and call the tower and give them that report. So when a pilot is coming in, they would contact the control tower to find out what are the weather conditions at the aerodrome. So the pilot would give them the report that the observer gave. Now the forecast is, I won't say the next level. There are other levels in the Met Office. So from observer, you can actually become a mid-level technician, and the mid-level technician is either you do instruments or you do climatology, right? So for instrumentation, they would fix any instruments, set up any instruments that we would have at the Met Office or across the island, those automatic weather stations. So maintain and build those instruments and so on. That's what the instrumentation department does. And the climatological department is responsible for making sure that the data that the observers collect on an hourly basis is saved. If anybody calls for any weather information from previous days or years before, so on, they would compile the information and send it to them. Sometimes in cases of disaster or, just like one-off events, like there may be some high winds and your roof gets blown off or so, and then you make a claim with your insurance. The insurance would want to know what the weather conditions were like on that day, at that time that the person is claiming that their house or so was damaged. So the climatology departments will have to make up those reports and so on. And then now the forecaster, which is a senior level technician, which is what I do, we actually forecast the weather for the upcoming days or 24 hours or days ahead.
Okay, that makes sense. So you mentioned a lot of like terms, I guess, which we all hear. So like haze and cloud cover and pressure, etc., which doesn't maybe mean much to the average person, but obviously that's what you use to do your forecast and to understand what's going on and what's coming. So I guess like, what are some of the phenomena or like the natural occurrences and weather patterns that are out there that affect us, especially in the Caribbean, that the regular person might not understand or be aware of? Just the low-level ones.
Okay, so Grenada is in the tropics, and the tropical weather, tropical meteorology is very dynamic. It changes quickly. It won't last as long as, let's say, synoptic meteorology, like the weather patterns that you may get in the US or England and so on, Canada and so on. So tropical meteorology is very dynamic. It's actually a bit more difficult forecast the meteorology than in those mid-latitude areas, right? So the types of weather patterns we would experience high pressures, low pressures, and high pressures are associated more with what people would say good weather, clear skies, and um, good conditions. And low level features are not low level, I mean like low pressure systems are more so associated with bad weather, showers, thunderstorms, and so on, cloudy skies, and so. So in terms of low pressure systems, we may have things like the ITCZ, the Intertropical Convergence Zone. We have tropical waves, and then we have those tropical cyclones, which come in the form of tropical depressions, tropical storms, hurricanes, and so on. Right? We also have troughs, which is areas of low pressure as well, that would give us those cloudy conditions, rainfall, and so on. And we may have that at the surface level, at the mid levels of the atmosphere, upper levels of the atmosphere. So all these different things would influence the kind of weather we have. And I know a lot of people would say, oh, y'all say the same thing every day and so on for the weather. But we only experience 2 seasons, right, in Grenada. We cannot forecast and say we're going to get snow and things like that, you know. So sometimes it just makes me laugh that people say, oh, it's the same thing y'all say every day and things like that. But that's just the conditions that affect us in our area. Other Caribbean islands would say the same things that we're forecasting. It's the same weather pattern that we're having. It's either when we're in the dry season, we'd have dry conditions, we'd have hazy conditions, we'd have less rainfall, and so it doesn't mean no rainfall in the dry season, it's just less rainfall. And then when we get to the rainy season, the forecast might be a bit more like in the form of like partly cloudy to cloudy skies, thunderstorms, and so on, low chance, medium chance, high chance of thunderstorms, and so showers and those kinds of things. And if when we forecast showers, right, we need to keep in mind that we are forecasting for the trial and state, Grenada Caribbean. We're not making a forecast for St. George's. We're not making a forecast for St. Patrick and so on, right? So even if the showers or the rain doesn't fall at your location, that doesn't mean that there was no rainfall in Grenada for that day if it did not fall at your location. And a lot of people would call and want to know, okay, I have something to do around my house today. I want to know if rain would fall. We can't narrow down the forecast to just a point like over your house, you know. We do a broad forecast for Grenada Caribbean. And in terms of the models we look at, Grenada is just a dot on the model. So we cannot then make a forecast for a pin in that dot on the model, you know. So we try our best to give an accurate forecast for the trial and state, but if you at your particular location don't experience what given forecast, it doesn't mean that that was not actually an accurate forecast for the trial and state. So showers will be falling in Caribou, and it's, I think a perfect example would be this hurricane, right? Mm-hmm. Because the eye of the hurricane passed over Caribou. You can see the devastation for Caribou. Almost total loss in Caribou, right? Mm-hmm. But in St. George's, there was like nothing. And so you see the not distance. Nothing, but well, yeah, almost nothing, right? Yeah. So we see the distance between St. George's and Caribou, right? So that just gives an example of the weather we forecast on a daily basis. Something might not happen in the south of the island, but it's happening in the north of the island. And because you're in the south, you can't see that didn't happen, or because you're in the north, you can't see sun didn't shine, if rain fell for the whole day at your location. So it's, people just have to bear with us a bit and just understand. And I think that's why this is important, just to understand what we do, and we forecast for a larger area than just over your house or in one parish and so on. forecasting for the entire trial.
Yeah. I always like that's really interesting to me, the fact that because we know we're such a small island, so you would think that like weather patterns generally affect the whole island at once, but you do realize like even just between, let's say, St. Paul's where I am and Granans, sometimes it's raining hell hard here and it's dry in Granans.
Yes, yes, and people say that all the time they're driving and a big shower falls in from, like, let's say St. Paul's to St. George, but when they get down to Grandance, it's very dry, and Grandance is almost like the driest part of the island. When we record rainfall at the airport, it's almost always less than rainfall at the other stations across the island.
And so that was my next thing. Okay, so there are other stations, because I was wondering, like sometimes most of the time when you hear the forecast, you would say like how much rainfall was experienced overnight at the airport. And I think to myself, like, we probably got a lot more rain in other places. So why is the airport the only one that's being tracked? Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, well, because that's where our office is, and that's where the we have the rain gauge that collects the rainfall, and that's where we monitor like 24/7. There are stations island wide. Sometimes they are not always up and running, but we always give the information at Point City because that is our only manned station. That's the only place that we have people 24/7 monitoring the weather and all the conditions. So that's why we specifically say the rainfall at the airport.
Okay, and it goes back to that information being important for the functioning of the airport, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And for climate data and so on.
Okay, makes sense. All right, so for what you do, so you mentioned that you have to do training before you get started. Is this a field where there's a lot of continuous learning and education? Like, do things change a lot in this field? Or is it really just the experience that takes you through?
So there's definitely continuous learning. We go on multiple workshops per year for different things, because we don't only at the airport, we don't only monitor just the weather. We are the only Met office on island. We have to do everything in terms of meteorology. So climatology, we have, so when the hurricane season is upon us, and sometimes even the dry season, when the seasons are changing, we have what is called Paracop, the Caribbean weather forum and so on.
Mhm.
That occurs, and persons from the Met Office will go to that and learn about what we're expecting for the next 3 to 6 months and so on. That's persons in our climatology department. We are actually responsible for tsunami warnings as well. So as we are a 24-hour office, any tsunami threat will come to our office, because then we are always there so that we can put up the alerts and so on. So we have trainings for tsunami. We have trainings for all different things. Any new products that's on the market that companies want to market to us, sometimes our staff will have to do some training on that. It is something that we want in our office and so on. So there is continuous training. And as I said, we obviously start as an observer, and then you would, whichever area you show interest in, if there is an opportunity for you to go and train, then you would advance in the office and so on with that. But there's always continuous training, and sometimes some rules may change, so we need to be updated. Even as forecasters, every 5 years we have to do a refresher course.
Okay.
To update ourselves on I won't say the terms, but like new codes, and so that changes in the rules and so on for what we do in producing the aerodrome forecasts and the methods and so on.
Okay, so you mentioned tsunamis, which I think I've always heard it's like hard to, maybe that's an earthquake, but it's hard to forecast a tsunami. Is that correct?
It's hard to forecast an earthquake, but earthquakes, underwater volcanoes, as we have Cape and Jenny, some volcanoes that are close to the lakes and so on. And even like mudslides, landslides, all these things, if they are near to coast and lakes, like for larger countries, if there's a lake and there's that's in a valley and there are hills nearby, if there's a landslide or so, it may fall into the lake and so on and cause a tsunami. So it's not only from the sea, but from some lakes, large lakes, and so can produce tsunamis. So it's not difficult to forecast a tsunami. Whenever something happens, then you would get the alert if it could produce a tsunami. So let's say there's a earthquake that may generate large waves and swells and so. Then we would get a message from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center that an earthquake has occurred, the location, the magnitude, and so on. And if it is expected to generate a tsunami, and then it will give the time of arrival of the first wave if it is expected to affect us.
Oh.
So that has not happened, but we are still prepared. So every year, the Met Office along with NAGMA will have a Caribbean exercise.
Okay.
Where they will focus on different areas and different parishes and so on, try to get people alert and prepared for any event of an actual tsunami.
So just because I think people would be curious, I am. If something like that was to happen, how much time would we possibly have from, the time that you're alerted that something happened to the time that the tsunami would hit? I guess it depends on how far and all of that.
Yeah, it depends on where the earthquake occurred.
Yeah.
And on. So if the earthquake, the center is closer to us, then we have less time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes in our Caribbean exercises, we have 2 hours from when the earthquake occurred to when we should actually be at higher ground. Sometimes it's less time. Mm. So every year we do a different scenario of where the earthquake would occur, if it is a volcano that erupted. But let's just say Kittenjin. If it were Kittenjin, we didn't have much time because it's right there, close to us.
Yeah.
So it's to prepare our the public every year on tsunamis and what to do, where the muster points are, where high grounds are, where you should go, and so on. So
okay.
A part of our job at the moment.
Also, again, because I've always been curious, and this is probably more of a NADMA thing, but if you do know, is there like a warning sound? Like, how would we know if a tsunami is coming? Is there something that, like an alert that would go out? Do you know?
Well,
to the public?
For the Met Office, what we do, we get the message, and then we would then have to call, we'll call the persons in-house that we have to call. There's a chain of command. And then we definitely have to call NAT to alert them, and then they will do their necessary things. So,
okay.
I don't think we have any alert sounds at the airport, but I'm not sure if NAGMA has, because during those Caribbean exercises, I think it's just the people they know about it beforehand, but when the actual thing is to happen, I think there might be some to alert the public.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have to find out because I've always wondered. I know, like in the States and stuff, like if there's a tornado coming, there would be like this loud, obnoxious sound. So it would be nice, to have some warning, because not everyone's watching the news or checking their phone or whatever the case may be.
And if it's overnight when people are sleeping, then
right. How do you know? What do you do? Yeah. I hope someone's thinking about that.
Yes, okay. I think NAMA probably has that knowledge.
Okay.
We are only responsible for letting them know, and they will take care of
public response type thing.
Yes.
Okay, makes sense. Cool. All right. So, is there anything, like you said, you've been in the industry for 11 years. Is there anything that you think needs to change or, be done differently in the way that meteorology is practiced here in Grenada, in the Caribbean? any changes that you have seen? What does that look like?
But there's a lot of things we can do and are working towards doing, especially in this age of social media and computers and so on. Because before I started, there was not all these computers. People would do the chats manually, have to draw the chats, see where the features are on the map, and determine what the weather would be. But as time went on, as the computer agents, so we look at models on the computer and we can make a forecast with that. So there's always some development as technology develops and so on. There are things that we can do. Within the last 2 years, we actually started a marine meteorology department. We had a workshop with some mariners, marine users like some fisher folk and other persons that are interested in marine life and so Coast Guard and so to figure out really what kind of information they would need from us on a daily basis to help them in their work. And we have since developed what we call a marine bulletin, which we send out at 5 a.m. every morning to alert these persons about sea conditions, weather conditions, and in terms of seas and so on, kind of weather will be expected and so on. So they will know how to start a day, because on a regular basis, we give the morning forecast at 7 a.m. And by that time, fisher folk are already out there and doing their business. So we can't wait until 7 a.m. And then they're out there, they may not have self-service, they don't know what is expected. So they said 5 a.m. is at the time to send a report, and that's around that time is when they're preparing to leave. So we were able to come up with that report. So constant communication with the public and figuring out their needs and the products that would satisfy their needs is something that we are always try to do. So we always try to engage with the public and figure out what it is we can do for them.
Okay. Given like everything that you've experienced in the past few years and what you initially thought you would be doing, because you did know for quite some time that you wanted to get into meteorology, has there been like any huge difference or disparity that you've noticed in terms of like, well, I didn't think that it would include doing this, or like, this is not what I thought I was going to get myself into?
Okay, well, growing up, when you think about meteorology, you think about the ladies on the weather news showing, oh, this is the weather. That is.
Yeah.
So I know that we were not doing that in Grenada, which is sort of a goal of ours in the office in a couple of years that we might actually get to that, but I mean, we need more staffing and so on, funding for those things. So that was one thing that I knew that other places do that we don't do. And I didn't know that it entailed so much at our office, really, in terms of the different levels and so on, the different jobs that they actually do at the different levels. So actually getting into the field is when you really realize, okay, this is really and truly what it is about and so on. So it was a nice experience for me, and
a pleasant surprise, not unpleasant.
Yes.
Okay, good. And in terms of the subjects that you took, like, was there anything looking back that you thought would have been more helpful? Because you mentioned like geography isn't really everything that people think it is. So I guess what would you advise for someone who is interested in going that path that they focus on?
Math and physics.
Yeah.
That's the top subjects that you definitely need to focus on.
Okay. Good to know. All right. What do you see the next 5 years or so of your professional career looking like, if you've thought that far ahead?
Okay, well, as I said, I have my bachelor's in mathematics, and when thinking about what else can I do, I am leaning more towards the natural disaster mechanisms and so on sphere, right? So
Okay.
I may do a master's in that area to kind of bridge the gap between meteorology and disaster response and preparedness and so on. So that's one thing. And as I just mentioned before, like actually doing live updates and so like on a daily basis or so for the office. But as I said, if we have the staffing and so on, that's a goal of mine to see that we get to that point.
Yeah.
For Grenada.
Nice. I hope we do. If you could go back in time, or if you can just give some advice to, someone who is, let's say, around the age of 15, between 15 and 18, and figuring out their next step in their career, what is something that you would tell them?
I think research.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the subjects that you like, that you're good at, and then research careers that fall in line with those subjects. Because that's kind of what I did. Because as I said, I was good at math, I liked geography, I liked physics. I mean, I didn't like physics all that much, yeah, but it was all right. And because of the career path, I knew I had to do well in physics. So that is a motivator. When you think about your career path, you know the subjects you have to do, that's where you need to focus and strive on. And there's nothing wrong in having a backup, because in my case, my backup actually is what I am doing for a living.
Right.
So don't just stick to one thing, right? Because if that doesn't work for you, always, I mean, yes, you want to have your goals and to aim towards that, but actually have a good backup plan as well, and do the subjects and so on that will get you in line with your main and your backup. And a lot of research.
Yes. And talking to people.
Even things like this, the Pathways podcasts. Mm-hmm. Listen to people who are along the same career line as you, and even try to at the Met Office, people can come in and do tours. And so if you're interested in meteorology, you can come in, do a tour of the Met Office, speak to the persons that work there to know if that's something that you would really want to do. Okay. Sometimes you get there and you talk to the people and you're like, okay, no, I think I should do something else. So yeah. I would encourage even parents, if you know your child is saying that they want to be at this or at that, try to line them up with persons, even if they can actually go on the job sites with those persons to actually see what it's all about, so that they can make the right choice for them. Because sometimes a lot of people focus on some things at school, or you do a degree in something, and then when you get into the work atmosphere, you realize, I really don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this, after you spend a lot of money on it.
Yeah.
So it's important to actually talk to persons that's already in the career for some time, and if you can do some on-the-job training, or just a site visit to see if you would really like that. There are a lot of YouTube videos on a lot of different careers, get people's experiences. So that's when I say research. It doesn't mean only just reading up about a career. You look at videos, you look at day in the life of a doctor, day in the life of an architect, day in the life of a meteorologist, and things like that. And that would give you an idea if you really want to do this as a career.
So important. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. And so along the lines of, being able to come in and do tours and so on, what are some good places that people can find more information about the weather in Grenada, about meteorology, and everything that we just talked about today? Okay, so actually we are working on our website, but you can get the weather straight from the Met Office on Spice Weather 473 on Instagram and Facebook. That's Spice Weather 473. That's updates that come straight from the Met Office. A colleague in the Met Office actually puts out that weather information whenever we make the forecast, whenever we have any advisories or bulletins out. He will update the website, the social media platform, and that's weather information straight from the Met Office. Nice. I didn't know that, so I'm going to go follow.
Thank you.
All right. And to the listeners, thank you for joining us on today's Pathway.
Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to leave a comment wherever you found us today and let us know what you think about this episode. If you liked this one, I think you might like this next one even more. Go check it out and let me know.